John Gormley, welcome. Good to have you here. We are just awaiting a quick call from Premier Brad Wall on the provincial government's response to the news out of Melbourne, Australia this morning that the mining giant BHP Billiton is going to be spending $2.6 billion US on the Jansen mine. Now, for many of you who know little about Jansen, first of all, that's the name of the town that is nearby the mine. But think of Lanigan, Leroy, Jansen, that area of east central Saskatchewan. And the unique thing about the Jansen mine is it's virtually equidistant from Saskatoon and Regina. If you head straight north of Regina a couple of hours, you'll get to the intersection of Jansen. You head straight east from Saskatoon a couple of hours, you'll get to Jansen. So the mine has been under construction there by the mining giant BHP Billiton. They have so far spent about $1.2 billion. 2.6 will push this up to $3.8 billion, and it is still not a full go from the company that they're necessarily going to mine there. But you heard the Vice President, Chris Ryder, at 8:30 here this morning, say that it will push employment from the current range of about 350 to 500 people up to as high as 2,000 people in the next several years. Premier Brad Wall has been watching this development, just scrummed with reporters in Regina, and we grab him on the phone now. Premier, thanks for taking our call.
Morning, John.
First news to you as you hear from Melbourne about this morning, impression?
Well, it's very positive for Saskatchewan, and I think it speaks to the more measured approach that we were calling for to the news out of Russia that had some folks maybe hitting the panic button a little bit. This is a long-term industry. Even our excellent potash companies currently mining in the province were saying as much in the wake of that development. They were saying, look, the long-term fundamentals in a world where the population continues to grow, where the middle class and emerging economies continues to grow rapidly, and their demand for a more protein-intense diet grows. And with those fundamentals in place, the long-term prospects for our province's fertilizer industry for potash are solid. And I don't think a company like BHP would make the announcement they did today, $800 million a year for the next several years, $2.6 billion to get to the next phase, if they also did not see that. We also heard from K+S, the German company, who aren't just moving ahead with their project, they're advertising near Moose Jaw, brand new mine recently at post the Russian development, and Potash Corp coming out and saying, look, their long-term expansions are continuing. So, again, I just think we need to remember that, first of all, we are a lot more than potash. In the last job numbers, the stars that created all those jobs, 21,000 year over year, were manufacturing, innovation, trade, and agriculture. Where we have so much more than just potash or even just natural resources, and the long-term fundamentals for the resource sector remain solid. So I think this is a very welcome development. BHP has been a great corporate citizen, large corporate office presence. They moved from British Columbia, and we were certainly encouraging that. And now this development today, I think, it's just a very good day for the province, John.
Is this, in terms of even the way we as people begin to watch potash, a question of not reacting to the small kind of commodity up and down cycle as much as the longer range planning? I mean, it's a bit of a forest and trees issue, isn't it?
I think it is. And, consider what the floor price for potash was not very long ago. Much lower than the $300 that even the most negative or pessimistic analysts were talking about might happen, or even the CEO from the Russian company was saying might happen if all of that actually occurred as was laid out a couple weeks ago. And by the way, the jury's still out on that. This is a long-term industry. The population continues to grow, and as I've said, those who demand a protein-intense diet, that group continues to grow. The middle class does, and that's good news, not just for fertilizer, John, but for agriculture. And that kind of speaks to how our economy is diversified. And, we need to be not complacent or certainly cavalier about these developments. That's why even as a government, we're asking ministries to look at spending. We've got oil ensuring that it's still balanced in terms of our budget, but we want to be careful. We want to continue to focus on the fundamentals of the economy. Today, Tim Cutt from BHP said this is the greatest place in the world for a potash development because of the geological resource that we have, but also because we have a stable fiscal and economic environment. And that's a centerpiece of our growth plan. It was a little disappointing. Even Mr. Broughton, the leader of the NDP, I think, post the announcement from Russia was kind of pushing the panic button and saying we need to diversify the economy. Well, that is exactly what the people of this province have been doing for about a decade in a real intense way, and we have a number of strengths going for us, and I think this is just more good news today.
Premier Bradwell, before I let you go, the mine at Jansen, of course, is still under construction. So 2.6 means it continues to build up in this new brand, this greenfield project. When it starts producing, it will be the largest potash mine in the world. Does this become for you an opportunity at that point to start dealing with the royalty regime, given older mines, expanded mines, new mines? Is our royalty structure now perhaps too complex?
Well, there's the complexity issue, perhaps. Maybe even more importantly, there's the issue of, and to oversimplify things, the fact that our royalty structure is biased towards price instead of volume. And as volume grows, we need to make sure that the owners of the resource, the people of the province, are kept whole. This is nothing new. This was a bit of a contrast even in the last election when our opponents were then and now saying we need to immediately increase royalties. And my concern is that BHP does not make the announcement today if we give them royalty shock and the expansions underway are stopped if we were to take that approach. Now, in the long term, as we produce more potash from the province, given the fact that our current structure is biased towards price, we will need, and I've said this publicly before, and we'll sit down with producers and work out a longer-term royalty improvement so that the people of the province are kept whole, but also that the companies have a great business model going forward, so there isn't any royalty shock. We saw what that did in a neighboring province. We actually benefited from it when the resource sector, the oil industry, was moving here because of that kind of royalty shock. So we're not doing that. We're just not. We're going to continue to have a very competitive tax structure in this province. We will work with industry to get to that place and make sure that those who own the resource the people are also properly compensated. But we'll do it together. And we've said this to the companies and publicly, and I think it's an important approach. Stability in this world today, I think, is essential in terms of economic growth plan, and we want to be able to have that as a hallmark of our own plan here.
Premier Bradwell, good having you by, Premier. Thanks for this.
Thanks, John. Take care.
Premier joining us in Regina. He just met with reporters, and we wanted to make sure, as usual, you heard him here first taking questions. His response to the BHP decision to spend a further $2.6 billion at Jansen, he says it is a very good day in our Saskatchewan.